Good morning once again, everybody. Merry Christmas. I say that because I think all of us can already feel the coming of that day. But Master used to say that actually every day in our life, every breath is actually a matter of deep, deep celebration. I also wanted to welcome the online audience, but especially, Blazy, if you can turn the camera around so that they can see the celebrations and decorations that have been done in the temple. Isn't it beautiful? Yes. The tree, the creche, and all the decorations over there, and much more has to still go in. We have some beautiful, glass pieces we got from Italy last year, and I remember one of our members, that was the only money she carried for the entire trip. And when we entered this shop, one after another, we saw all these beautiful pieces, and there it was, something which was for a month was spent in like half an hour, because sometimes you don't get this. And that is on one level the theme I want to speak about, friends, that what is it about the life of a saint, a person, shall we say? Christ himself would tell, when people asked him, who are you? And he would define himself. In the Bible it says as the Son of Man, and at other times the Son of God. And it created quite a confusion. Actually, it is not easy to understand the saints. Swamiji said, if it was easy, what would it speak of the divine playwright, God who writes? He says, how subtle is his novel, shall we say, if we have to treat it? Because in the end, let's put it that way, it's a fiction or it's a dream. That's what actually all saints tell us. They say, wake up from this dream. Actually, once there was a man who wrote a letter to Paramahansa Yogananda ji in Boston, and he says, don't you know that Christ is fictional? He's a myth created by man. He never even lived. And Master was hurt when he got that letter. Not hurt because his faith was shaken. He knew Christ lived. He actually used to commune with him, like Ramakrishna Paramahansa. These great masters are always in communion. But then he said, but the man didn't sign the letter, nor did he ask for an explanation, give his address. And Master thought, what can I do about this? And he prayed to Divine Mother, that why are people so closed in their understanding? And few days later, he was in the Boston Public Library, and he was looking at some books, and suddenly Divine Mother spoke to him. She said, the man who wrote you that letter is sitting on that table. And Master turned around, and sure enough, there was a man. And you guess what happened? Master walked up to him and he said, why did you write me that letter? And the man started shaking. He, of course, knew Master who he was. He said, sir, how do you know I wrote that letter? Which letter? And Master says, you know which letter I'm talking about. Don't you know? Don't you feel in your heart Christ lived? And this man basically said, I don't think so. I think he's a myth. And then, but he says, but anyway, how did you know that I wrote that letter? And Master gave him a very beautiful answer. He says, the same power which told me that you are the person who wrote this letter tells me that Christ very much lived. And he was just as the scriptures describe him, actually much more fun and colorful and loving. And what is that? Paramahansa Yogananda ji, our guru, it is very interesting to notice that he was sent with a dual mission in this life. One was to re-establish, he said, original Christianity and then Sanatana Dharma, but we'll focus on Christianity. And especially in India, it is good to tune into that, because you might say we have actually a back and forth debt. What is that debt? Master Yogananda ji said, when Christ was born, in celebration, in deep gratitude, see, those were dark ages, Kali Yuga. If at all, like I sang cloisters, people want to wash their hands off whatever, challenges there were, and they would want to go far away. What to speak of a saint, a master who is one with God, who has no limitation, no compulsion to act, to be born in any way, to think in any way, for him to renounce that and enter the realms of space, of time, of dark ages, knowing very well he will be persecuted, crucified, as we know. That was Christ's unfortunate fate, But Master said, when such a one is born, there is a deep celebration. And in gratitude of that, 3 wise men from the east actually traveled to what was then known as, the Asia Minor, as we call it, where Turkey and Bethlehem and all those countries, Israel is today. And over there, they paid homage to him. Now, did Christ just receive that? He was a baby. Today I'll play a chant, a song sung by Swamiji called The Christmas Mystery. When Christ grew up, Yogananda ji said he traveled by foot to India, to Tibet. He paid homage to the great masters, he said, of the East, and especially those three. Master says they were Sri Yukteswar ji, Mahavatar Baba ji, and Lahari Mahashaya, in that different incarnation, whatever that was. And he paid them a visit. He thanked them just as they had thanked him for being born. And then he learnt for a few years, and then he went back to where he was from and spread the teachings in that short span of his life. Now, those teachings, Master said, over time, as it happens with everything, they got diluted, misunderstood. Even while Christ was alive with his own direct disciples, there were times when he would say something, and Swamiji said, the only time Christ would scold his disciples, or he most often scolded them for one thing, for not being able to understand his teachings as deeply as he presented them or as he wanted them. So if this was happening in his live presence, we can imagine what happened over the next 2000 years. It is not just with Christianity. It would happen to anything for that matter. This is the realm of, you might even say, disintegration. Things come. And even in receiving, Swami had a beautiful explanation. He said, water can never flow above its source. So if the source is God, then the saints bring it down, then their disciples bring it down. So that's why we may read a book, and this is the theme. Why did Master have to re-establish? What does re-establishing Christianity or any religion, any teaching for that matter mean? It means to accept it the way it is in the realm of, let's say, our material world, but to work on it, let's say by writing a new book, giving a presentation, taking question answers, which he did. Swamiji also did. But then he says to really establish it once again in our consciousness. Now, this may seem not very relevant to most of us. We may say, oh, but why do we need that in India? Christ was not even from here. But we need it because he was a saint. We need it because he's in our line of gurus. There are 4 satsangs we will do on the life of Christ. Today is just an introduction of these teachings and Swamiji's book, Revelations of Christ. I will talk about that book very briefly. But then next week we have an 8-hour meditation dedicated to Christ. We will listen to much readings of Master Swamiji on the life of Christ. And then from there we will have a discussion on Christmas, a satsang on the historical aspects. Who was he? Whose son was he? Why and how was he born? Where? Who were his disciples? What challenges did he bring? As Bara reminded us of, his guru was John, and Christ played the role of a guru. Many times in Christianity this concept is not understood. I gifted this book to a man at his own request. He said, very well placed person in Mumbai, and he said he had me meet the mayor of Mumbai and few other dignitaries, and later he said, sir, I have read autobiography of a yogi. Yogananda ji speaks extensively about Christ. He quotes him in every chapter practically. Can you tell me a good book where original Christianity is shared? I said, oh, I know exactly. I said, it's right there in the boot of my car. So we opened. I was at that time carrying these gifts and all, and I gifted him this book. I remember very clearly. I said, oh, he was so happy. He said, thank you, thank you. I said, yeah, let the event go by. Let me know what you think about this book. He said, absolutely. Oh, there was a public event, it passed, and a few days passed, and I had also relaxed and recoiled by that time from my work, and I thought about him. I said, oh, and his call never came. But it's a bulky book, maybe I said few more days, but the call never came. So I called him one day. I said, sir, how did you find the book? And he said, oh, it was very good, I must say. But he said, Aditya, it was too much for me to take. He said, I know many bishops and people in the church. If I were to share that book with them, it would strike at the very heart of Christianity, and they would not like it. I said, I know. I didn't say that to you when I was sharing that book. That is actually the opening testimonial of the book. What is Christianity? And we don't have to feel bad. We have to, if let's say that happens to be our religion, everything needs pruning. The teachings of Patanjali, the Bhagavad Gita. That's why the Gita has so many interpretations. These truths sometimes are not understood even by the direct disciples. But that does not mean that we should keep it that way. And Master said, above all, anyway, to finish that story, I told him, sir, it's not your job or mine to strike at the heart of a religion. Our job is to practice it. That is what religion teaches. We practice, we offer it, we learn as much as we can. I also remember a very sweet incident just a few months ago. I was in Italy, and a Catholic nun, much older than me, much more experienced, was staying in a very remote monastery where we were visiting, and she saw us meditating and she asked me, she was from India, and she said, are you Indian? I said, yes. And the second day she said, will you teach me meditation? I said, yes, I'll be happy to. But she was very cautious. She said, what's your religion? And what do you practice? What is this guru? And I said, sister, look, I'll share a few things about meditation. Anytime you feel I'm saying something which is hurting you or shaking your faith, let me know. I'll try to explain it better. Or we don't have to touch that subject. Meditation can be totally non-sectarian. It is actually. Religion also actually, its goal is to, if at all be discussed, to be discussing the common points that the saints have raised and not the outer differences. Outer differences are there because the culture, language, time, understanding, behavior of people is different. So outwardly it is seeming different, but inside it is the same. Anyway, after some discussion, I said, now let's meditate. I said, sit up straight, focus at this point. She said, by the way, I've always had headache within 2 minutes. Somebody taught me to focus here. I get headache. I stopped that practice decades ago. I said, okay, let's watch the breath. Slowly, it's a simple practice. And let's try. I said, if you get a headache, open your eyes. I had her sit. I saw after 2 minutes she was still calm. I had her sit for 3 minutes. And I said, Amen, Om, Amen. Let's open our eyes. Take some time to open. I said, how was that? Very peaceful. She said, I haven't experienced such peace in a long time. I said, oh, well, I'm happy. No headache? She said, no headache. She said, but tell me, what was that blue tunnel in which I was finding myself totally pulled? And you see that spiritual eye, for those of online, this is the spiritual eye. Yogananda ji said it's a universal reality. That is the light we meditated on. We did the visualization in deep meditation, which can sometimes come to a person who does not know the teachings, who has deep devotion, as this sister did, within 2 minutes, 1 minute, first time with a special technique. And this speaks of the universality of these religions. So anyway, back to the point. What does it mean when a master revives or uplifts the consciousness? How can we tune into that consciousness in these coming weeks? So master said, there comes a point sooner or later where he says, because this is how God has made us, he said, we want to feel unique. We want to do ever new things. He says, because we are ever new joy, condensed, as deeply, as packed as it can be. You may think of your body like that, your mind like that. That's why we want to always read a new book. We want to meditate further to get a deeper experience. We want to travel to see what is out there. We want to converse with people because it expands our consciousness. And Master says, above all, that happens when we deeply meditate. He said once he visited somebody's home during Christmas, and on the Christmas tree was hanging a shotgun. And Master looked at the shotgun and he went to the lady, the owner, and he said, Madam, that shotgun is totally out of place. Here we are celebrating the birthday of the Prince of Peace. He who said, those who live by the sword shall die by the sword, and you're hanging a shotgun on the Christmas tree. And she said, oh, I'm very sorry. I just thought it is pure celebration. So I put practically everything that we have at our house, little bit of everything. And she said, let me replace it with a child's Bible. And Master says, that's much better. So he was saying that sometimes when Christmas comes, we think, or any festival for that matter, Diwali, New Year, we think of outer celebration, which is good. It has its place. Actually, outer celebration, if we think about it, why do people celebrate outwardly? Often it is from a joy inside. You feel good, you feel love, you want to do something. But then, sometimes it just comes because of habit. or because that is how society does it. You should put a shotgun, I will also put a rifle, or it is a cake, it's a pastry, it's a toy, it's a football. And that does not match at all with what we are trying to speak of when we say we want to expand our consciousness to infinity, and Christ on these special occasions especially can help us even more. So Master says once we go through the outer celebration, social interaction with people, rest perhaps, travel, he says, then we must tune into a few deeper aspects. He says, first of all, by meditation. Like I said about that sister, she could have asked many more questions. I told her, I said, you attracted this. I said, because of your inquisitiveness, because of your sincerity, because of your openness. So, at these special times, Master said a few recommendations he gave for Christmas. He said, tune into his love. What love it must have been that brought him to be misunderstood, to share, to travel in those times. He says, display that love. Give that love an outer expression. Give gifts to people. Serve them. Make them know that you care for them. He was giving many instructions. He said, help the poor. Give them clothing. Feed them. Perhaps make gifts, carry gifts for others. Cook food for them. So once we've meditated, we've done this seva, Master says, think of all people as manifestations of joy, God's own creation, and try to feel that joy in your meditation. It's a good practice. I was thinking about it. Normally we just look at each other. Again, we are accustomed. You know, the saints' teachings, they are very loving, but sometimes they can be very disconcerting. Because again and again and again, it seems like their only goal is to remind us we are not just this body, this gender, nationality. Actually, that is another very good reason to celebrate festivals of other religions. Because what is religion? Like Swami Vivekananda, he said, it is very good to be born in a religion, but it is a tragedy to die in one. That by the time we have evolved in our consciousness, what do rituals, what does religion really mean? If we have not understood its essence, it is to again and again tune into consciousness, put out our self-effort, and draw their grace. I would like us all now, and I want to speak briefly, because for at least I remember the last 2 years, 3 if you include this one, I've had a deep desire. And I've shared this with people, but I've never been able to, for one reason or other, give a satsang around Christmas, that we purchase this beautiful book. I want to just read a few lines over here. And this is from, not the introduction, but the foreword. I'll just read 2-3 paragraphs. This is written by Neil Donald Walsh, a very well-known spiritual writer worldwide. He was a good friend of Swamiji. To my many friends and spiritual companions around the world, something wonderful has happened. There has been given to humanity a great gift. It is a spiritual treasure to cherish deep in the heart and to pass on to children for generations. I am speaking of the extraordinary book, Revelations of Christ. For longer than any of us can remember, the words and teachings of the great Master Jesus have been guiding lives upon the earth. Yet those words and those teachings have too often been interpreted and understood in meaning ways that may have distorted their original meaning. Because the messages of Christ are so profoundly important, it is essential that they be embraced with only the deepest love for and loyalty to God and truth, not any institution or religious tradition. Like I was saying, that friend should not have thought of changing Christianity. He should have, perhaps he did, think of changing his own perceptions first, because that was his question. He said, I want to understand original Christianity. For spiritual truth lies outside of institutions and traditions and can only reside within the fullness of a human heart that is united with the soul in the purest yearning for the bliss of truly knowing the divine. And Swami writes in this book shows that the true custodians of religion are the saints. Self-realization is the true goal of all religions. Consciousness is the essence even of seeming inanimate matter, and divine joy alone is real. So Now let's listen to Swamiji, and I urge you to please make a purchase of this book and study it over the next 4 satsangs, as I said, and we will then perhaps do a book study at the conclusion to see how this was. Okay, let's now listen to Swamiji singing the Christmas mystery.
Long ago there was a little shed, where 3 mighty kings did bow their heads to a gentle babe of low degree, whom men called the Son of Mary. Who'll tell to me this mystery, how a tiny babe in a manger laid could so many hearts to love persuade, this holy Son of Mary? Shepherds came and knelt in wonder there, seeing him in light beyond compare, and his eyes that told them all love was he, whom men called the Son of Mary. Who'll tell to me this mystery, how a tiny babe in a manger laid could so many hearts to love persuade, this holy Son of Mary? Wonderful it was that Christmas day, how from far and near they came to pray, how from far they glimpsed his majesty, whom men called the Son of Mary. Who'll tell to me this mystery, how a tiny babe in a manger laid could so many hearts to love persuade, this holy Son of Mary? Could it be that in that little one Spirit's universal love did shine? If it's true, he lives in you and me, whom men call the Son of Mary. Who'll tell to me this mystery, how a tiny babe in a manger laid could so many hearts to love persuade, this holy Son of